Welcome to the Daily Edge. Steve, Jake, Mark, we are the Noodlebergs. Let's find our edge, and that always starts with our affirmation. I communicate with intention and clarity, knowing that the right words open doors to genuine connection and success, which is going to tee up our topic for the day, which is all about communication and words matter. And in your book, you wrote about the 3 greatest words in sales. Tell us about them.
Yeah, so, the book Confessions of a Serial Salesman is all about the mechanics or my process. And everybody in sales, I ask sales leaders, sales managers, how do you quantify the work that people are doing? Meetings and appointments. And I was like, I don't know. I think there's too many meetings. Appointments for me were always about, doctors and lawyers. I don't want, so it seemed too clinical to me. So just the shift of changing that up front to visit would open up the door to a much warmer conversation. Nobody's bringing brochures and contracts to a visit. So I like to give people stuff that's actionable. Just change the word and say, hey, when's a good time to visit? I'll be in your neighborhood. Ooh, when can we visit? I'm scheduling visits. The result was remarkable. Now, I coupled that with 2 other words, but just staying on the word visit is such a warm entry that you get a better response.
I think most, at least new salespeople, struggle with what to say.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's like our number one thing when we work with people. They're like, well, what do I say? Because obviously they're trained on product and service, and they can talk, they can talk about it. Mark, talk about when you got to ESPN.
It's like this double-edged sword, right? Of like, really, as a salesperson, don't say fucking anything. Shut the fuck up. That's part of what you need to be doing. But then as a salesperson,
that's
you
not
have
in the training.
Right. But you also have to say something to get people to engage. And your point of like the word you use actually matters. But like, so for me, right, I was in the college football world for 14 years, 10 years post grad. And to me, sales was really recruiting, right? And it was, how do you develop a relationship? How do you get somebody to come to the school? How do you get the parents to buy into letting the kid come in? So when I got into the business world and they were like, okay, you're going to be selling digital marketing and advertising, they put me through 2 weeks of training. And all of the training was about our product, our price, and our service. That was it. It was what we did, how we did it, right? What it would cost. And
which was typical across most categories.
Which is important, right. Don't get me wrong, because you have to be an expert in what you do. If you don't know what the hell you do, you can't talk about it, educatedly, and then you can't really help somebody else understand it. But there was no training about how to get into a conversation to be able to talk about those things. So like that was really the start of Dad and I working together on like,
you asked. You said, how do I get into these conversations?
Well, their answer, my first job was cold call, which is the answer for most organizations, right? Pick up the phone or start emailing. And now we've added auto dialers and automated emailing.
All of it is, I'd like to interrupt your day so I can talk about how I get paid.
Talk about me and what you need. Right?
Like, what?
So it was the first really step in the direction of us building my game plan that would eventually be very successful for me there. But you point blank were like, that's great that you know what to do. Stop trying to talk about it. Right? And you changed my approach to, number one, target a very specific group of people. So I was targeting business leaders that were Florida State grads because I could have a really relevant conversation with them on our history. And all I was asking you to do was visit with them so the next 2 words then, right? Visit with you to see if we were a fit and if I could provide value.
Well, so that was it. Here's the dance. Most people, and I call it the puppy dog, oh, please buy me, please buy me. I make that choice. Not everybody's a fit for us. I don't expect everybody to be a fit, but I'd like to make that decision, not the other person. And so I would say, hey, I'd love to visit with you. One of the purposes of the visit is so I can figure out if we're a fit. And they would go, well, why wouldn't I be a fit? Well, we're not a fit for everybody. our personality, our style, the way we charge, all of that might not be a fit. That doesn't
or the way
mean
that they are,
right.
not just
And
us.
it doesn't mean that we can't be friends. It's just that we're not going to do business together. I do that dance up front, and that led to the conversation about value. So I want to visit. I want to figure out if we're a fit, because if we're a fit, I can deliver value to you, to what I call 3 pieces of social credibility. Companies that, oh, we're doing business with Amarant Bank, we're doing business with City Furniture.
That's the key, though, is I think when I first got in, and I asked you, and I love you to death, but you work with such high level salespeople that, like, dealing with someone who was at the very bottom, right? Like, you were like, you're going to be good at it. You can talk, right? Just talk. And I was like, about what? Right. And for me, it was weaving the storytelling into the sales process.
Correct.
Right. It was telling a story that made them feel a part.
This is a really key point. I always made it visible, and the people that worked with me, I made it aware that when we brought in a client, you own that story.
Right.
So just because I was the one that was doing it, we do business with so and so. And so it's important on the company to understand, what are those credible clients that you do business with?
That's really the entrepreneurial mindset, though, right? Not being an entrepreneur, but walking into somebody else's business and then acting like everything that business owns belongs to you is a very significant shift for salespeople. Because I think salespeople do a horrendous job of building themselves up mentally. All they do is tear themselves down. They think about, I'm not good enough to talk to the CEO, or what we do isn't as good as somebody else's.
It's similar to baseball, where you're failing most of the time.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think if you're a good salesperson, you're still hitting what's your percentage?
Yes. I mean, if you're 35%, you're a Hall of Famer.
You're a Hall of Famer, right?
So it comes down to expectations. If you said, I just want you to go out and visit, if you removed the obstacle of trying to sell something and just said, go out and visit with people, could you visit with people in person or virtually all day? Yeah.
All day long.
Mark talked about it in our community call the other day, and he broke it down into 4 things that I really liked. And it was, can we be friends? Right. Let's get through that first. Can we be friends? Right. Number 2, can I earn the right to talk business? Right. I'm not going to lead until that foundation is set. Number 3 was, will you give me a problem to solve? Do you even have a problem? Is there something that I can solve?
And that's the assumption
that I have something to immediately turns that person off. And then the last one was, now can we do business together?
And so, like, I think I've developed these 2 philosophies in my brain as watching elite salespeople, right? Watching you my whole life. Well, there's these 2 that are at the foundation of being great in sales, which is, 1, you have to know you can help people, right? Like, I have a confidence about me and what we do and how we do it that I know I can help you.
That's a limiting belief if you don't.
But I also know that I can only help you if you allow me to help you. And so I've got to earn that ability for you to allow me to help you before I can help you. And most sales training is the exact opposite of that. It's showing up saying, I know the problem you have. I know we can solve that problem. Let me do it. And so you bypass the first 2 questions.
Hence why the word fit. It's like, you may not have a problem that I can solve. That's okay. When you do have that problem, I want to be the one that you call to at least run it by me. You earn that right.
I was just in the Zelensky-Trump thing where Zelensky was like, you're going to feel it. And Trump was like, don't tell me what I'm going to feel.
Yeah, right.
Don't tell me don't tell me what we're going to feel.
So this is the world that we live in. It is constant friction to do. I want you to see my product. I want you to know my product. I want you to buy my product. How about just being friends with somebody until, look, Mark, recently, 2 major deals that we have closed were years in the making. Years. They have a problem that we can solve now, and we're the ones they called. Most people just do not have the fucking patience.
Correct.
They're
buy it. So they're not being led with patience either, right? Like, I was in that space where it was like, no, you need to be making the calls. You need, if it's on the first meeting, when are we going to talk about marketing with them? Like, there was no kind of savvy to, and that's really why I developed our process the way that we have. Because I was like, you're great. You're saying the 4 steps are identify the target, do research, reach out, follow up, virtual coffee. That is the thing, right? Because if you don't follow up, you're never going to get to the virtual coffee.
And most people don't follow up. They're one and done.
Right. So like, I was like, okay, that process is really great. But then I was like, well, okay, now I'm having all these first meetings with people, first visits with people. How do I know where I'm at now? Where am I at in the stage? Are we on second down? Are we on third down? What do I need to do in order to continue to move this down? That's where the 4 questions came from. Can we be friends? Can I earn the right to talk business with you? Will you give me a problem to solve? Will we do business together? Because the reality of those 4 questions, you could go from 1 to 4 in 10 minutes.
Boom, right.
You could go from 1 to 4 in 10 months. You never know how long that process is going to take.
Or you can never get out of one.
Right.
That just might not. There's plenty of people that are friends of mine that will never do business with us, that refer the hell out of us. Oh, you sales? Boom. You know, I just had a conversation this weekend with somebody who came from a referral, and he said, I was thinking about a business or an executive coach. And the person said, the only person you should talk to is Steve Nudelberg.
Right.
Like, that was years in the making. I earned the right. So this idea that everybody treats that one visit as this is my one shot to sell this person is
correct.
Ludicrous.
Right.
It's like, you know,
there's absolutely no patience to it. But the other part is that people don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
They don't know. All they know is that I'm supposed to sell. I'm supposed to sell.
You have a leader sitting over your shoulder.
I was about to say,
right.
You almost learn more from a bad leader than a good leader, right?
Right.
Like, because the good leaders will incentivize you to go create those relationships and be in the places where you can make those relationships. And I remember I was still in coaching, but you took the job at ESPN and you went to leverage some of Dad's relationships, and they told you no. Right? They were like, we've already approached them. Don't go meet with him. It's a waste of time.
Right.
And you went, well, hold on. He's the CEO of a massive company. I think this would be smart for me to go at least have a conversation with him if he's offering me the time.
Which is just, and like, we're going to talk about this on Wednesday with
really
Hotwire. But it's just the difference between sales and business development. Sales is transactions, business development is relationships. And most sales training teaches you to do nothing other than drive transactions, which doesn't work. It will get you burnt out. It will get you tossed out. It is the easiest way to throw yourself out of sales and out of the marketplace in 90 days.
Hence why there's burnout, why there's rejection.
Well,
there's no rejection with us. You either are or you're not. Man.
If you're pushing yes or no questions, the relationship ends. You're putting a finish line on something that doesn't need to have a finish line. And so you're churning and burning them with no goal that they'll ever come back to you if it's a yes or no.
So
right
what
now.
I love is that when we start working with a company, there's real-time examples that come up. And I shared this with you guys the other day in our meeting, that somebody in the banking business reached out, right, and said, hey, I was able to visit your facility. I love it. Love to talk to you about banking.
Right.
And the answer came back was,
I don't need a banker.
Not interested in banking.
Right.
Like, and he was like, what did I do wrong? I go, you made it not about a visit, because had you said, hey, I'm so impressed with how your people were, I'd love to learn more about how you're doing that because I'm responsible for leadership, you got a much higher chance of building that first visit, then you made it a yes or no. I'm not interested in banking. I'll let you know if I am.
So let's go back to the words then, right? When you're interacting with people, if the words you are using are I, me, and we, right? You're making it all about you and nobody wants to talk about you. Sorry. Like, that's the other part of, like, you know, sales training is, okay, if you can get somebody to say yes to a conversation, excellent, then go ahead and shut up and let those people talk. If you are the ones that are dominating the conversation, you're not getting any information that you're able to use to help yourself.
Well, the qualifying questions never have anything to do with relationships, right? The qualifying questions that are developed by the sales leader are all product based and realizing if they're a fit that way before anywhere. And so
you lost yourself?
So let me jump in for a second. Good. Can I give you like a real, this stuff happens in real life.
Yep.
One of our biggest client relationships is Aflac.
Yep.
Right. And I tell this to people all the time. The way we started the first visit was because he posted something about being a New York Jet fan.
Yep.
I said, only another New York Jet fan knows that misery.
Yep.
Are you interested in visiting? Yes, we did it virtually. That led to in person, and then led to, I'm interested in learning.
This is what happens when I try to remember statistics. The statistics ran away from my brain, and it was.
Do you have it now or no?
Yeah, it's in my head. So I think it's depending on who you ask, either 80-20 or 70-30 about how much you should be listening versus talking.
Sure.
Right. And I think the 10% doesn't really freaking matter
right.
how you're doing the math, but like you said, it's the complete inverse on how you get taught.
Well, so like, and you were saying that like you reached out based on the jet content, right? And then said, are you willing to visit? I think people get hung up too on like, so what words are you using? Visit about what? Visit about whatever matters to that person.
About the Jets.
What's the thing that's important to them, right? Let's visit about the Jets. You want to talk about the Jets?
Tell me why you're a Jet fan, how you're a Jet fan, your favorite memory.
And then every transactional sales leader is going to go, how does talking about the Jets lead us to new business? Because it builds the relationship, you moron. Yeah, that's how. And nobody is going to buy from you unless they know, like, and trust you. Period. End of story. It's the foundation of all great business development since the history of business. So I think if you lead with questions and words that lead to who that person is, what's important to them, why it's important to them, you can build you can get all the information you need to build a solid foundation of relationship that then moves on to something else.
We're playing assuming that the other person is also relationship driven. There's plenty of times we get on calls, right, that they can't develop a relationship on their own, and they're giving you no answers, right? It's very
great. I'm all. So
how do you go from that to business?
Well, so that's like I'm not wasting my time with that guy. Like I'm still going to play the game.
But that's not practical.
I think it's a waste of time.
But I think that's not practical.
Wait. Time out.
I'm with you.
If you go with the numbers, right, and you say to yourself, I'm willing to invest in the people that are willing to invest in me in that conversation.
Yes,
it's a much different lifestyle. Than pounding people.
I have friends.
Ultimately, they will say no.
Yes. I have friends that work in, they call it business development or they're SDRs, but it's their, BDRs. Transactions. And I tell them, or I try to teach them, like, hey, why don't you try to develop the relationship up front? And sometimes it takes the entire first call and their boss is mad at them. And so how do you get the conversation to business? I understand building the foundation, but how do you actually do it? How do you make that transition?
So we totally believe in storytelling.
Of course.
So for me, it's always some point in the conversation where I'll say, hey, you know what? That reminds me of something I'm doing for Mark's company. And and all of a sudden it's like, oh, really? Oh, yeah. Oh, so it is an art form. Yes, you practice.
Yes.
You role play how to take the conversation from where, but it has to listen. You have to listen and wait for that clue. And sometimes it doesn't happen in the first call.
Yep.
And so all you do is sell the second call.
Yep.
Wow.
Bingo.
Boom. Okay. Hey, you know what? This was so much fun. Let's do it again next month. I'd like to hear more, and maybe
closing the conversation off.
Words matter, right? Like asking for permission. So like if you let's say it takes you the whole first call and you've done an amazing job of actively listening, right? 15 minutes. And we'll get to that in a whole nother episode.
I'm saying the 15-minute virtual coffee.
But let's just say your entire first call with this person is all about them. You're actively listening. You're getting to know about their family and their friends and their interests. And you've built up an unbelievable amount of rapport and trust with this person by investing in that conversation. At the end of that conversation, you could literally run the script of, hey, this was awesome. I loved learning about fill in the blank, right? Would you be open to doing this again and me learning more about what you do? I really didn't learn anything about your business, and I'd love to hear hear about what you do so that maybe I could provide value. Go back to the word of the three greatest words in sales. What kind of value are you
talking about? Or who can? Well, some of the value is I can introduce you to somebody. I'm out there meeting people every day. Maybe there's somebody in my world, and I think it's bullshit if you can't deliver an introduction first.
Right.
So I built my career.
Right.
Oh, you know what? You should meet Mark because Mark's doing, oh my God, you deliver value up front before they talk about business. This is not foreign. This is very simple, basic practicing. You guys in football, you went out every day and practice the basics.
Yeah.
Right? Every single day. Then you played a 60-minute game. you went right back to practice. Talk to me about sales, practicing what you say, who you say it to, why you say it. You know what I mean?
So the words matter, right? Like I can tell you, Jake, both and I, as signalers in college football as coaches, you practice the signals. Yeah. I went home with the game plan on a Thursday night and was like, here are the play calls. Let me go through so that when the word comes up, I'm sending the signal. I'm not even thinking about it. It's the same with your words. You have to practice the words. You have to ingrain them into who you are and the way you think, because then it will just come out naturally in the conversation. But that only comes with the practice. It only comes with the repetition of saying, this is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to say, and having it ready for you to fire.
And because of what we do, we recognize when other people try to sell us how flawed it is.
Right.
And you listening to this for sure will recognize like, oh, this guy's just cutthroat. This guy or gal wants to just make a sale. And I think the transactional part of things is over. People have a choice. Yep. They want to deal with somebody that they can know, like, and trust. And you can't do that by interrupting people
to sell them.
I tried to get us there, but you guys didn't pick up on what I was putting down. If you get on a call with somebody who isn't very open and stuff like that, ask them, tell me something good.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No. So
I was not to piggyback off your saying that, but it's really the most important thing on how you start the conversation.
I agree. Starting and people have asked me, and that's how I came up with that. It's like, most people are not programmed to say anything good. They're thinking all the negative. I got to do this.
What was the call center story?
No, it was actually a Bank United story, which was amazing. Darlene, I asked Darlene, hey, tell me something good. And she was flustered for a minute. And then she said, my son just finished his second year at MIT. I was like, oh my God, this lady was lit up like a Christmas tree. I said, oh my God, tell me more. She went on to tell us more. Today, her son is actually working for SpaceX.
Yep.
So we have that in common because I made her think of something good. So the best way to open up a conversation is tell me something good, or what's your story?
Well, you're influencing the conversation.
The one I
right
remember
up front
was that you were working in the phone industry and you were selling products that didn't really work. And everybody was calling the service center pissed off the entire time. And you were, the people that were there were answering, oh, hello, how are you? And they're like, piss the fuck off. Shit sucks. And
I paid a lot of money for this
like in the box phone and everything. And you went in there and was like, why don't you just answer the phone and tell them to tell you something good? Right. And like diffuse the situation. Right.
Well, so I think that drives the point of like, you can influence the conversation. And going back to fit, like, I use that religiously because you taught it to me. Tell me something good. I not only use it in our first visits with people, but also in our coaching calls. Like, I want the people we're working with to come into that in the right mindset. So like, I'm going to ask you point blank, tell me something good. But I will tell you that recently I was on a call with two CEOs or co-CEOs of a company. They're a family business. And I opened the dialogue with them with tell me something good. Both of them struggled for a minute and could only come up with, well, we woke up today.
Ooh.
And I was like, okay, this is a big red flag for us, because I can already tell you that as the mindset of the leader, if you can't find anything good, that's going to then trickle down to the rest of your organization. You're probably going to be a hard organization for us to work with. I'm playing that in my head. Now I go through the rest of the call and I do everything. But for us, when you talk about, are we a fit? I'm judging them on, are they a fit for us? Right. Because you know what? We're change agents, and we're going to come in and we're going to try to infuse new behaviors and new mindsets. And if you can't find something good in the first 5 minutes of a conversation with me to share with me, I can already tell you that your mindset is way different than ours is, and we're not going to be a good match.
We start the show with an affirmation.
Right.
That's the way something good. I have a great affirmation. I have gratitude for waking up, and that's fine if that's what it is.
Yeah.
But to say, I woke up,
Right.
it's like, holy shit.
Right. Wow.
We talked about words, and the purpose of the show was to talk about words and influencing the conversation. I think a key point is being the driver of the conversation doesn't necessarily mean talk.
No, it means you're not talking, actually.
Like
means
guiding the conversation doesn't mean you're the one talking, right? That's the asking the questions and setting the other person up for success, or to get them in the mood to get the information you want. And so when everyone hears drive, they immediately think that control equals you're hearing yourself and you're the one talking and blah, 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 blah. And it's the complete opposite.
I'll never forget, like, you taught me this behavior by leading by example, right?
Talking
like
about me?
No,
Thanks.
of course not, Dad.
We all follow you, Jake, man.
But so I learned this, and then I started deploying it throughout my entire life, right? Like, it's how I became a full-time coach at Florida State. Was I would just invest in everybody around me, figuring out, what was important to them and how I could provide value to them. And I did that through asking questions and learning about people. But then I read the book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, and he titled that behavior and he gave it a label and he called it tactical empathy. And I remember it was like somebody blew my brains out. Right? I was like, oh my God, somebody just labeled the concept and the behavior that I had seen my entire life and I had started deploying. But that's really what it is when you are not talking, when you're listening and you're asking curious questions about what somebody's, what's important to somebody and how they got to where they are, and you're getting all of that information, that is tactical empathy. You're building a bond of trust and of a relationship that you're doing on purpose.
So being a student of the game, which I've always looked at all of these things, let's just talk about when somebody, how they normally start. They normally start the conversation with, "Hi, how are you?
How are you?" I get it all the time.
You?
Every cold call.
How are you is an invitation for me to dump my shit on you. Oh, how am I? Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
This is bad. My house, my car, my boom. So knowing the behavior, and you said it, change agents, changing the behavior, which is the words. You show up differently, you get different results.
It's exactly right. So I think for sure, if you're unsure about what the edge is today, it is your words and choosing them to influence not only you,
when to use them,
yourself, but the way they land with other people, influencing the way a conversation goes, the way you're perceived. Your words matter. Sure, the tone and the body language and everything else matters as well. But if your words are wrong, it's hard to overcome that with all of the other stuff.
Kind of maybe sounds funny coming from three people on a podcast right now, but the loudest person in the room is usually the dumbest.
Yeah, sure.
I always
I love classic Andy scene,
Hill,
by the way.
Like Andy Hill, who's our good buddy of ours, like that was what he told me early on. He was like, just listen. He's like, just get in the habit of listening and being okay, not being the one in the room talking. And then when they're done talking, be ready with questions. And be writing those questions down throughout the entire time. And that was just great advice I got early on.
Excellent. Remember, if you're enjoying the conversation, like, comment, subscribe, share it with somebody. And if you're looking for more ways to grow your sales, get better leaders, and increase performance, go to ontheball.co. Thank you guys for finding the edge with us. We'll see you next time.